Hello, friends. Welcome back to Zapp Savvy, the podcast that electrifies your world with energy solutions.
That's right. Back for another episode. And I'm Mike Sokol.
And I'm Doug Curtis, and we're your hosts.
Today, we'll be continuing our discussion on solar power from last episode. Over the course of the next 3 episodes, we'll be talking about the ways you can use solar power in your outdoor lifestyle. This episode, we are starting with some of the most iconic camping vehicles. But our first segment is favorite camping memories.
Mike, this is so great. I mean, I have a lot of favorite camping memories. And let me just put up this little picture here. This is about 1970. Now, I built this van. Well, I didn't build the van. I built the interior of it. It was an empty van. My mom made those orange curtains so that orange went with green. I put in a floor. I put in the little paneling. And then I built a bench for the bed where I could put all my stuff. I had a camping stove, one where you used to pump up and then you could boil water. In fact, one of the best stories I have from that time was traveling I'm an Ohio boy. So off I went. We had no cell phones. I had no interior power at all. But I did have that little camping stove where I was able to pick some artichokes in Monterey, California, pump up my stove, boil the water. My refrigerator, you're supposed to put a block of ice in there, supposed to keep cheese and eggs, cool. So my butter to go on those artichokes was already soft, so no big deal there. But a lot of stories. Obviously, you can see my hair was a little bit longer there, and it's just a time when, that was my iconic vehicle. Of course, Mike, I know you've got a good story.
Okay, yeah. So back in the 60s, I think we covered before, my parents bought a Cox pop-up camper that we towed behind a Rambler station wagon with the push-button automatic transmission. And so I think I must have been about 13 years old or so. My parents and my 2 brothers and sister and I, we all went to Yellowstone Park from Maryland. Now, there's always an adventure when you're camping. We got to Lincoln, Nebraska, and one of the bearings, the wheel bearings on the little Cox pop-up camper locked up. So it's screeching along the side of the road. So we pull over to the side. My dad's got tools. I'm climbing under. We actually pull the axle out from underneath this little Cox pop-up camper, throw it in the back of the Rambler station wagon. My mom and brothers and sister all stayed in the camp. Dad and I went for a drive to go find a gas station. We found a gas station that had bearings. And the guy said, I could put new bearings in there. Would you like to learn how to repack bearings? I'm like 13 years old, repacking bearings in a Cox pop-up camper. We drive back and within a couple of hours back to the Rambler and the Cox camper, put the thing back on. And then we went off kept driving to Yellowstone, where I had my first camping romance. That's all I'll say right now. I can't go into it any deeper. So without that, there would have been no romance. Thank heavens for wheel bearings packings.
Yeah. That's a good story, Mike, and I do want to hear more about that campground romance. But hey, let's take a little trip together down memory lane of the other camper vans. We showed you mine, which was about 1970, but let's go back a little bit further. Now, just as a history, everybody remembers, that window Volkswagen van. I mean, everybody wanted one of those in the 70s. Because they were so cool. In fact, you used to see them with flowers painted all over them because those were the hippie days. Things sort of evolved after that to the Dodge, which that meant that you could actually stand up inside your van, which, of course, I couldn't stand up in my van. And then another really classic vehicle that came out in the late 70s with the GMC.
Oh, now, Mike, I love that. I love that thing. Oh.
I tell you, a friend of mine and we were making a film for Ducks Unlimited, and his dad had one of these, and it was a perfect production vehicle. We set off from Pennsylvania, drove to your home state, Mike, Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, and made a film. It was a great, great, great vehicle. I mean, driving that thing was, a new experience for me, much bigger than, of course, my old van. But what else you got there to show us, Mike? You got some other pictures up there?
Well, let's see. We've also got the Dodge then came out with kind of a, this expanded version. Once they started to see that the GMC was popular, and they started, you can see this is kind of like a high top thing with an air conditioner mounted on the roof. So this was kind of a blown out, Dodge van.
Cool.
Volkswagen, then the newer ones that came out with the Westphalias. And those things are just fantastic because that you've got a pop top. So when you're down low, you can actually pull into a garage with this thing. But when you're out at a campground, guess what? You can raise the roof as it was.
Yeah. Oh, I love these. This was, the road trek where actually, again, you're getting more room to be able to stand up and move around instead of being hunched down like I was in my old 40 Econoline.
Yeah, and our friends up in Canada, where Road Trek came from, they did a lot of stuff. But here's the interesting thing: nothing old stays old forever. So everything is new again. So guess what? Some of the newest vans are starting to do.
Yeah,
put the pop tops back in them.
Yeah. The Europeans have really come back into the American market with. Because their roads are smaller over in Europe, they can't really get a lot of vehicles. But what they do is they upgraded that old Volkswagen bus that we saw, and then the pop-up, and now they've got, this is the newest version coming out in 2024. Really,
right.
The interior back, if you pull up that picture, the interior, of course, this has like a screen and you can see the bunk in there, all the built-ins that are there, much different than that old 40 Econoline with orange curtains of mine.
Yeah, and they put high-end stuff in them, and the high-end price too. So some of this stuff is not cheap, but you can do a lot of stuff with these. It's pretty amazing.
Well, the thing is that a lot of these new vans, Mike, and I know you're the expert on this, you've been doing a lot of research, but a lot of the newer vans are coming equipped with solar when you buy it. But a lot of people have a lot of questions about this. Maybe you could, let's tease that up for a minute. Why do we need solar? We need solar because when you go out to these state parks and these national parks, people in vans, they want to be able to get off road. They want to be able to do what I was doing, dare I say, 50 years ago, stealth camping. And but when you get into the national parks and the state parks, there you can't run a generator, so you're going to need some sort of solar power. And they've got a whole list of regulations. We can obviously put that on the screen where you can run your generator only between X hour and X hour. You have to basically be quiet at night, which is what, I never, in my 50 years, I didn't really camp in, what they call RV parks. I was a stealth camper. I wanted to be in the woods. I wanted to be in the mountains. I wanted to hear running water. So, of course, I didn't have a lot of modern conveniences. Like I didn't need to have a CPAP machine. So if you're going camping, you need power. Maybe we could just talk about that a little bit more, about all the things that you need just to be able to do what people call today glamping, right, Mike?
Well, yeah, so glamping kind of, it's a derogatory term. I hate to say it, but this is a lot of people that really don't want to get in the woods. They just want to take a fancy camper out there. But we're stretching that whole thing now, where you not only have to have a microwave oven, it has to be a convection microwave, and you've got to have you have to have an air fryer because you want to have low fat eating options. When I'm camping, man, I want to eat junk. I'm sorry. I want hot dogs with chili smeared on it. And, I'm still, I'm okay. I'm going to survive all of this stuff. But for some people, that's the most important part of this. And of course, what you're trying to do is figure out, what your family will, or you and your friends will want to have to generate these experiences. So I think it's a little silly, but this is just me. They'll put a big old flat screen TV in the side of their camper so you can sit outside and watch the TV. When I'm camping, I don't want to watch TV.
Yeah.
I want to go do stuff. I want to go hiking. I want to go fishing. I want to go watch the lunar. I know guys they track around the lunar eclipses and camp so they can see this and take pictures. I mean, this stuff is just fascinating.
There's so much that is happening with this whole history, everything from my old 40 Econoline with orange curtains all the way up to this new Volkswagen and all these Sprinter vans. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back and tell you what exactly some of the recommendations you need to be able to run solar power in a boondock or off-grid situation.
Three problems every RV owner notices on their very first trip. The AC won't start on low power while camping off-grid. Any second AC units won't run when connected to a 30-amp power pole. And repeated AC startup is noisy at night, so any rest is virtually impossible. So whether RV trips are spoiled by overheating in the RV, no 50-amp poles at the campground, or no sleep because of noisy, rattling ACs at night, RVing isn't always as cool as it looks. But there is a simple fix. Install a SoftStartRV. You'll immediately enjoy quick AC startups on low power, even using a small generator. Cool, continuous comfort all day or night. Installation takes 20 minutes. Professional installation is available.
Peace of mind that you're safe and you can run what you want when you want.
Get your SoftStartRV today.
Hey, everybody. What I really liked from the last segment was the GMC van motorhome thing. I think it looks like a spaceship. I've threatened to get one and put an 8-track player in and paint it up with all of the neon colors. I'm a rock and roll child of the 70s. Wouldn't that just be the coolest? But, oh well, not probably practical. Okay, Doug, now, are you ready to hear about how you could, in theory, outfit that old green van of yours for solar?
Mike, that, talk about 8 tracks. I had a cassette deck, which was the competitor of the 8-track in that old green van. But the problem was, I didn't have any power. I mean, if I wasn't running that engine, there was no AC, there was no refrigeration, there was no 8-track, no cassette deck. So if I could get your help to help me with my old van, or a lot of vans that we see out there, people who are going stealth camping, people who are using Class C's, Class B's, or super vans, or even a regular travel trailer. These people need some of your expertise. So let's jump into it.
Okay, so we're going to do a couple of definitions this time, and then we're going to go deep dive in some future episodes. But first, let's talk about this generic van life kind of van. You see some millennials, seniors. I see a lot of people taking this stuff around the country. So let's talk a little bit about this, and let's do a little bit of a checklist of what van life is about. So many of these are just like your original van, but they've been outfitted internally for kind of a comfortable lifestyle. I like to think of them as stealth camping. There's no generator on this because basically they don't want to pay for campgrounds, hookups and such. They want to be able to go to places, park along the side of the road. Sometimes they'll stop in a residential section or a Walmart or whatever. Now you don't need one for Walmart camping, but a lot of the places you do. So you really can't run a generator. So you need power. Now, there's some room for batteries, maybe a single 100-amp-hour lithium battery, but generally they don't have a lot of rooftop solar on it because that attracts attention, the gendarmes, as it were. So some of these will have a little suitcase solar panel that you can just pop out and plug into the side of it. I've seen that. Many of my vanning friends just get a solar generator like a Jackery, which we've talked about before, and they use that for solar panels and extra battery power. And you can, in fact, set these up if you do this correctly with a DC to DC charger so that your alternator in your engine here can recharge your lithium battery pretty quickly. You just don't want to connect the lithium battery in there directly to your motor, your battery that, starting your motor. So different chemistries, different voltages. Now, the thing is, I know people that have lived in these things for years. I know one guy I've talked to, I think he's been in one for 12 years. So with careful planning, you can live for months without paying for a camping spot. And I've got one guy, he just travels around to wherever it's nice out. So he doesn't worry about heaters. He's got an electric blanket and a little 500 watt pure sine inverter. I know a couple people, but I'm a little terrified of this. They use a propane powered heat buddy inside of their van, but you've got to make sure you have a window open so you don't die from carbon monoxide poisoning. Seems a little crazy, but there it is. There's generally no room for an installed toilet. But sometimes you'll get like a portable cassette toilet or a portable little potty thing that you can set out. Thetford makes some good ones for those emergencies when nature calls in the middle of the night.
Well, nature.
So that's the basics of these little vans.
Well, a lot of those things you're reminding me are things that people are using right now. They want to be able to, like, I never paid for camping when I was camping because I wanted to be where nobody else was. I wanted to be where I could, just sort of be in the wild. And the conveniences that you need to outline here, Mike, because now we see that, there are those stealth campers, but boy, what I really like is those big Mercedes Sprinter vans, which are really decked out, and they do have the capability to be able to provide more comfort. So,
Right.
It could be a retired couple, it could be a young couple, it could be a group of millennials. I know my daughter goes camping with 3 or 4 of her friends. They just go out there, and those kinds of vans are just perfect for them because they don't have a lot of money, or the money they have, they'd rather spend to, get to that great place and, enjoy the nature.
Right. And so what has happened, because you might call these, class Bs or B pluses. So
Right.
these things are basically built, many of them on a Sprinter, RV chassis. And so there's room to do stuff. So you're generally not stealth camping with this because it's really obvious when you pull up with one of these things. They're
Right.
pretty big.
Yeah.
There's a lot of roof space. So many of them will have 400, 800, even 1,000 watts of solar on the roof. And you can do a lot. Now, I used to think that 200 amp hours of lithium was a lot. Last year at a couple of the shows, the number of the Sprinters and some of the even smaller travel trailers had up to 800 amp hours of lithium batteries. You can do a lot with this. The Sprinters are really interesting because some of them will add a secondary alternator that can recharge that battery bank up in an hour or two of idling or driving down the road. So some of them, they'll go to 48 volt systems, put 52 volt alternators in them. I'm amazed at what they do from Volta and others. The Sprinters, now you didn't have this in your Doug, but the Sprinters, they'll have their own water tanks.
Yeah.
They'll have a toilet, a shower, what we call a wet bath, which my wife is terrified of because you're sitting on the toilet taking a shower, but there you go.
Yeah.
They will have generally a propane powered water heater, some kind of a furnace it can run, a small kitchen or kitchenette, a dormitory sized refrigerator. Many of them are 12 volt DC, a little 2-burner cooktop, a microwave oven with convection. And some will have built-in propane generators with remote starts. I mean, this is, let's go, a New York City, a Manhattan-sized apartment. It really is. Yeah. Because I've been there before, and and I'm like, my van had more room in it than this stupid little apartment. But there you go. And they do a great job. If I just had to drive around and just go do seminars and I had an extra $150,000 to spend, I would just go get one of these and I
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't even worry about plugging in. I would be powered up.
Yeah, well, Mike, we've talked about the Sprinter vans, we talked about the Stealth vans, and the regular trailers and Class Cs. Uh, the checklist is very similar for a Class C, and can you just sort of maybe?
Oh yeah, more room. So generally, they will have a full size kitchen. Many of these now will have a larger refrigerator. I've seen some of them, they're actually sticking residential refrigerators. I mean, 10, 12 cubic foot in there, sometimes bigger. They will have a dry bath. You know what that means? Separate toilet, separate shower, all good, right?
Oh,
Combination propane electric water heaters, a full furnace, and most of them will have a towing section, a hitch on the back, so you can tow a toad. Does everyone know what a toad is? A toad is the vehicle that you tow behind your motorhome, right? So that you park your motorhome, then you can jump in your little Jeep, whatever the heck it is, and you can go drive around in these things. So they lovingly call them a toad, TOAD, which is just slang for a vehicle that you're towing behind it. And most of these are built like on a 450 or 550 chassis, pretty big gas chassis. But they're really quite capable. Some of them are also going to be toy haulers, where you can actually put your motorcycles and dirt bikes and all ski-doos, anything you want in the back of these things. And they're really quite capable. I think, you can get them in and out of places that you cannot take a Class A. Now, we're going to talk about Class A's later, but a Class A can be all the way up to the size of a full coach.
Yeah. Wow. Mike, we're running out of time already, and we still got some questions that came in from other people. Let's quickly jump into some of those common questions that you were getting just in the past few days about solar power and lithium batteries, things like that. Go ahead.
Right. And as many of you know, I do a daily newsletter, a Substack, my rvelectricity.substack.com. I get stuff like this constantly. This is how I know what kind of articles to do. So, keep your questions coming. We like that stuff. So the biggest one right now I've been covering in the last couple of weeks, can lithium batteries be charged in the winter? And the answer is yes and no. If your batteries don't have an internal heaters, they should not be charged when it gets below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So once it gets below freezing, if you try to charge that lithium battery, it will cause permanent damage to the cells. So once they're charged up, they can be discharged at any temperature that you could live at, I think. So, you can be, 10, 20 degrees below zero. Ugh. And you can still use them, but you need to make sure your batteries either have a blanket on the outside that heats up. They've got like a little cute electric blanket, or they've got internal heaters. Some of the better ones now have internal heaters.
Well, here's another question. I remember you told me about before that came in. Can a solar panel overcharge a battery? Seems like a strange question, but go ahead, give me the answer.
But it's true. So now, I've seen a number of the RVs, the campers that have been offered, and they say that they're solar ready. And what they've got is a little thing on the side that you can plug a solar panel into, but they didn't put a battery management system in, so they didn't actually have a MPPT controller. So without a charge controller hooked up between the solar panels and the battery, that solar panel will keep dumping juice into the battery until your batteries boil over and boil sulfuric acid all over the place, and sometimes the batteries will explode.
Oh, man.
So we don't like that.
No.
I mean, I've got pictures. I've got pictures from my readers, and the batteries have split and blown apart and blown acid everywhere. Oh. So not a good thing. You want to make sure that you have the proper type of charge controller in there. Now, the beauty of lithium batteries is you really can't overcharge them because they've got their own built-in BMS, their battery management system. But you really, really want to be careful. Don't just go buy a solar panel off of eBay or Amazon and just hook this up without really considering some kind of a charge controller.
I got another question that you shared with me previously. Can you charge a lithium battery with a converter charger rated only for AGM or lead acid batteries?
Man, I got to tell you, that's a real common one. So here's the difference. A lithium battery needs a higher voltage in order to be charged completely. So let's say that you've got your van or whatever, and it's already got, AGM or flooded lead acid FLA batteries in there. And if you just drop a lithium battery in there and you don't have a switch on your charger in there that says lithium, basically you'll only be able to charge up that battery to about 85% of state of charge, SOC. And that's not a bad thing because you could add solar panels on it that would bump up and finish off that last 15%. However, if you want to have all of the full benefits of it, then what you're going to do is change out your charger converter so that it has a lithium setting as higher voltage. And you can also get higher amperage, so it'll charge it much more quickly. You can recharge your batteries, let's say, in an hour rather than 5 hours of sitting there plugged in. But you got to make sure you change all your wiring out too at the same time. I'm doing videos on that stuff right now because if you want to be careful just willy-nilly upgrading it. Okay. But you can pretty much drop a lithium battery into anything that's got a standard AGM or a flooded lead acid battery, but it's not going to charge up above 85% unless you add a couple of solar panels and the proper controller, and then it'll just top it off. Like topping off your drink. Can I freshen that drink for you, sir?
Mike, coming up next episode, we need to really dig deep. I mean, what do I mean by that? We have to really maybe help the listener, the watcher, the viewer on how you could do a solar installation and sort of peel back the curtain on all the different components that are needed, like you were just referencing before, Mike, with lithium batteries. So let's figure out your questions. Send those questions to us. We'll try to answer those next time. But Mike, let's sort of wrap this up and look forward to talking to everybody about a really deep dive about solar installations coming up in our next episode.
Yes, and thank you to our audience for tuning in to another episode of Zapp Savvy.
We want to power up your adventures and charge your life with knowledge.
And thank you once again to our sponsor, SoftStartUSA.
Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends. We're sort of doing this because we have a passion for it ourselves, and we're trying to share that knowledge.
Yes, and be sure to comment what you like, what you don't like. Ask questions. The only way that I get smart about this, if you guys ask questions, I will go study. I've got a lot of manufacturers on speed dial. I will then find this out and try to convert from engineering speak into plain old English for you guys. We want to cater this podcast to you, and we love your feedback.
I am so grateful that you have all that technical knowledge, Mike. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time
on Zapp Savvy.